This is our concluding lecture or lecture video on international financial system. In this, we'll be talking about exchange rate regimes. So there are multiple exchange rate regimes that is operating in this world. The first regime is the fixed exchange rate regime. What does it mean? It means that value of currency is pegged relative to the value of other currency. That means they just anchor one currency against the other. If one currency appreciates, the other currency also appreciates, and vice versa. So this is a case of fixed exchange rate regime, which was in operation till the 1970s. Then we have floating exchange rate regime, which is opposite to fixed exchange rate regime, which means the value of currency is allowed to fluctuate against all other currencies. So nobody tries to control the value of the currency. It allowed the whims of the market to determine what would be the exchange rate. And the third is the something called managed float regime or dirty float, under which an attempt is to make influence exchange rates by buying and selling currencies. Though this is a kind of hybrid between fixed and the floating rate, where one currency is, though it's allowed to vary, but often these are under a controlled situation. So prior to this exchange rate regimes, there was something called a gold standard. And you might have heard about gold standard a lot. Now to make it clear that nowadays we don't follow gold standards anymore. So none of the currencies are backed by gold in this world anymore. We moved away from those gold standard days way back. So what is a gold standard? It's a fixed rate exchange rate system where no control over the monetary policies, because everything is backed by gold. So there's nothing called monetary policies, because all depends on how much gold you have. If suddenly you find a big mine of gold, suddenly you are a rich country, because now again you can issue a lot of your currency which is backed by your gold. As a result, what happens under gold standard? It is heavily influenced by production of gold and gold discoveries. Now there was also something called the Bretton Woods systems that was implemented since the post-World War II era. This was a fixed exchange rate system using dollar as the reserve currency. So under the Bretton Woods, what happened? Dollar became the world currency. So that's why dollar is the most important currency in the world. Bretton Woods also led to the creation of something called the International Monetary Fund, World Bank, and also GATT, which is nothing but modern known as World Trade Organizations or WTO. So these are the organizations which were formed post World War II to take care of the exchange rate related issues in this world. So next I'm going to focus more on gold standard, because you might have heard a lot about gold standard. There are also talks about going back to gold standard. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to present you some drawbacks of having gold standard. So again, what is gold standard? That's a fixed exchange rate regime in which the currencies of most countries were convertible directly into gold at fixed rates, so that exchange rates between currencies were also fixed. So under the gold standard, since you can always buy a specific amount of gold from your central bank, so which essentially means that the exchange rates are also fixed. So gold standards and fixed exchange rate are two sides of the same coin. And here's the problems with the gold standard. First is that exchange rates may vary depending on the discovery of gold, which is again a gift of God, right? It's a natural resource. If you suddenly find a big mine with gold, suddenly you are a rich country, because now you can issue a lot of your currency. Second problem is this, is focus on targeting gold price rather than inflation. Now, one of the prime target of a monetary policy is to keep inflation under 2% or around the 2% mark. But under gold standard, you cannot target inflation. All you can target is the price of the gold. So there's a lack of connection between gold prices and state of our economy. Typically during the bad times, gold prices do go up, right? If gold prices And why gold prices do go up during the bad times? Because people try to invest their money in the gold, because gold is considered as a safe investment. Now, if gold prices are going up, if government is trying to reduce the price of the gold, which essentially means that they should be reducing the supply of the money. If they reduce the supply of money, which is very counterintuitive to what we do nowadays, because during the recession, we try to increase the supply of the money. We don't try to decrease the supply of the money. So if you have a gold standards, your monetary policies would be completely counterintuitive to what we are doing today. And finally, the gold prices are typically counter-cyclical with respect to GDP. That means if GDP is going up, typically gold prices are going down, and vice versa. As I said, gold is considered as a safe investment, and often people do try to invest more in gold when economy does not do well. So, and if essentially, which means that it's a problem, because if a lot of people are trying to buy a lot of golds, it's going to increase the price of the gold, which calls for decreasing the money supply, which is not what you want to do during the recession. Another term I would like to discuss is speculative attack. You may have heard this term in the context of international finance, which essentially means that it's a massive sales of weak currency or purchase of strong currency that can cause sharp change in the exchange rate. So maybe currency traders, we all know there are traders in currencies, people do invest in currencies, and often if they feel that certain currency is going to go up tomorrow, they start buying up those currencies, essentially causing a huge changes in the exchange rate, and that's called speculative attack. Another term you may have heard in the context of international finance is called capital control. Now, capital control is used by many governments in this world, especially the governments who have shortage of foreign exchanges. It's any measure taken by a government, central bank, or other regulatory bodies to limit the flow of foreign capital in and out of the domestic economy. These controls include taxes, tariffs, legislations, volume restrictions, and market-based forces. Capital control can affect many asset classes such as equities, bonds, and foreign exchange trades. So again, some countries do engage in capital control to protect their foreign exchange resources. Mind you, many government needs these foreign exchanges to buy necessities like oil, medicine, and all other multiple different things, and that's why they need to protect those currencies. Finally, I'm going to focus a little bit on the IMF, because IMF do play an important role in this modern international financial system. And IMF stands for International Monetary Fund. And what role they do play? They were originally set up under the Bretton Woods system to help countries deal with balance of payments problem and stand by the fixed exchange rates by lending to deficit countries. So it was actually designed to maintain the fixed exchange rate system. But in the 1970s, we moved away from this fixed exchange rate system. And another role of the IMF is that they are the lender of last resort. Now, if a country runs out of money, often they can go to the IMF to borrow money. So that's why IMF is kind of a bank for the whole world. So, and they lend money to different countries if they face any kind of financial crisis or financial instability.